Hey y'all, beautiful freaking day, man. Awesome. All kinds of weirdness going on in the world, and I am not letting an ounce of it soak up into me. I am being intellectually intelligent and observing and realizing that we're coming into weird times, but I'm not going to let my heart drop. I'm not going to let my gratitude for everything that's around me drop, and I'm not going to lose my kindness and patience. I'm going to keep all that in there and hold it and create space to create solutions for problems as they come, launching from the platform of kindness, love, and gratitude. So I wanted to speak to you today about something that continues to come up. I just had a really beautiful conversation with my son on the way to school. I love my drive. It lets me kind of talk with him. We have this, opportunity to visit, and at the same time, it always creates thought. And I was explaining to him today about one of my favorite chapters in one of my favorite books, and it's the chapter on love, by Scott M. Peck, A Road Less Traveled. And he's probably one of the most intellectual authors I've ever read. He's super interesting. I find myself having to really chew mentally on each page because it's interesting. It's like he's like a deep intellect's look with a crazy vocabulary. He almost is, in my opinion, an over wordsmith, where he's dropping $20 words every other line, and but yet at the same time he's truly a master of the language. And the thing about his chapter on love that I think is so important is that as our society continues to become a completely infiltrated society based on dysfunctional codependency, and it seems like that seems to be bleeding throughout, everything from, how we approach our monetary lives, how we approach our relational lives, how we approach our political lives. Codependency is really this slippery, interesting thing that is very intricate and has, when you're raised amongst it like I was, the alternative thoughts of healthy interdependency really just don't compute. And so you have to really divest yourself of the emotionality of it to understand. And then once you can look at the intricacies of it, you have this capability to see, oh, okay, yeah, I get that. So here's one of those points, and and Scott Peck did such a great job on that chapter in love, that it's like it encapsulates some of this intricacy of codependency and how confusing it can be and insidious. So we are all taught in codependent families, and we are taught by society and even spiritual thought and philosophy and everything else that love is this thing to be freely given and with no expectation of return. And it is, except for when it doesn't come. Because the reality is, when we are giving of ourselves without expectation in an interchange with another human, then when there's a deficit in what's given by each, that deficit begins to be felt by the one getting less, or their perception of less. And then what happens is discontentedness, and the relationship either adjusts or erodes. And so if we agree that happens, then love actually isn't just a free giving with no expectation of return. It actually has an inside expectation of return as defined by the other person. Now, that's where it gets slippery. That's where love can be given freely without exchange or without expectation when the other person feels the same way. Because you can't ask to be loved. It just has to be given. But if it's not given, then the deficit felt means that relationship is going to diminish. And so it takes two people making that choice. And love is transactional. Love is something that's given and then needs to be given in return. But it's this magical little thing when you have two people who give of themselves in a loving way. And the interesting part is, and this is where perspective comes in, is that each individual's person's perspective of giving love and receiving love can look different. So let's say my son feels loved when I make him a sandwich, and I love making sandwiches, and having one of my expressions of love is feeding people, and I get fed back with the gratitude. But if all I get when I feed him is complaints and whining and not enough, well, then that ability to exchange energetic, loving gestures gets diminished, and it doesn't feel that great, and I'm not going to keep doing it, and whatever. But the other side of that is his expression of love may be hugging. And so, and my acceptance and how I feel love is to be hugged. And so if I make him sandwiches and he hugs me, and we are feeling like that's a contented exchange of loving energy, then bam, we got it. And when that doesn't suffice, we make adjustments and acknowledge that, okay, we may need to make this look a little bit different. Then it gives us this opportunity to just acknowledge and be honest about the exchange of loving gestures and how that feels for us based on our perspectives. And then the funny part is when we're choosing people we interact with, as we define that love, we get to pick the people that we more naturally meld with. But the funny part about humanity is that's never exactly right. There's always going to be an interchange of resources that has an ebb and a flow. Sometimes it's going to feel in deficit, and sometimes it's going to feel like we're over giving and not receiving. And that's where grace comes in. So then grace, for the inconsistency and the individual's ability to only have so much to give when they may be low or struggling or challenged or whatever. Grace comes in to fill in the gaps. And that doesn't mean, though, that grace can always be extended long-term in a genuine way and feeling like that relationship is an equal exchange. So if you're a person like me, who got really confused about the message that love should be freely given and freely received and all that different stuff, but you felt an angst over, yeah, but it doesn't feel fair. There doesn't feel like a fair exchange right now. I'm giving you permission to choose whether that relationship works for you, except for in that committed context, in a long-term relationship, an intimate, deep friendship, a parenthood, child, mother, son, family, those sorts of things. It's really interesting when we up the match and we up the scale and we scale up into family, long-term, deeply intimate. Those sorts of things are what cause us to have a bigger grace button. And there's opportunities to learn that grace button and to learn the perimeters of the edge of acceptance and what's possible. And can you be in a deficit relationship with a child and still feel content over time? So it's this great, masterful, beautiful experiment between being in a place where we're stretching and growing our own capability of being able to be in a loving context with our children and with our spouse, and over a long duration sometimes where the deficit's in place. And then it comes back up, and then there's a pivot in the relationship, and you grow and she grows, and all this different beautiful evolution that we can go through in our ability to love people. But I also want to give you permission that when you're in that loving exchange with somebody, that you're not in that lots of chips to the center of the table, and you're realizing from our individuals' perspectives, which aren't wrong, but just may be different, and from the way we look at it and we naturally give, this just isn't working. And because it's in deficit, I'm consistently expecting more than the other one can give. And so then we get the chance to just say, dang, we thought it would work, but it isn't. And that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. We are in the process in humanity to bounce off other humans, to learn from them while we're with them. And because those relationships don't necessarily meld and have that long-term push, which if you genuinely expect yourself to have 25 people in your life that you have these deeply intimate relationships with, then you're over expecting. Deep, intimate relationships are difficult, and they take lots of grace and lots of time and lots of energy. If you have 3 to 5 in your adult life that last the test of time, you're kicking fucking ass. But if you find that these relationships with these people come and go, and that they slowly fall off, and we're not talking acquaintanceships, we're talking intimate relationships. If you're expecting to have tons of those, you're over expecting, because it's just, humans are too different. There's only so many resources. We only have so much grace. We only have so much extra energy to invest in the exchange with one another. And it is very natural for those relationships to fall off, and nobody did anything wrong. That's a part of the process as well. It's like this, in humanity, how we celebrate birth, but we want to deny the beauty of death. There is a beginning to an end, and both are beautiful. And so if we look at the beauty and the opportunity to learn, then we get this chance to notice the nuances and take the next step in being better humans. So I just wanted to take a second today and speak to that, and all these things intertwined and all that stuff. And if you like this sort of thing, this is the sort of thing that I'm trying to do a bit more of as a part of kind of the overall holding spot that PackGoats.com, YouTube channel, and the homesteading stuff, because I just really want to begin to share this type of stuff and that stuff. And we're trying to figure out a platform to do that, whether it's on Patreon, and the conversations that happen around the campfire in the backcountry and that stuff are so beautiful and so amazing. I want you guys to see those too. I want you to see these beautiful, amazing adventures I go on. I want you to see and be a part of these amazing conversations that I have with these amazing people that I've been so blessed to interact with in my life, and to know, I want to open that stuff up. And I guess in some ways I always am curious whether you guys give a shit, whether it's something that's of interest to you. And if it is, then can we put it in a spot where you guys can easily do it, and I can figure out how to make sure that in the time, effort, and energy that I'm able to have some way to ensure our long-term success, because the money thing still matters. And how do I do that in a really equitable way? And it's this really interesting place that I find that God has me in right now, of trying to figure out what does that look like. And it'll be a really fun experiment as it goes forward. We have a full-time cameraman coming in. His name's Lion, and he's just been a huge blessing in creating an opportunity there to be able to share more of the daily interactions that happen on this farm and this ranch. But I just pulled up in our driveway, and we live in this magnificent valley, and we have this magnificent, beautiful farm, and we're trying to have it be this blessing, this ranch, this ripple ranch, to ripple out kindness, love, gratitude, stewardship for the land. We are temporary holders of this ground, and we see it being dutiful to make it better and to make it bless not only the land and the animals and the people, but the generations that will come here, because we'll accumulate positive energy on this ground. And so anyway, trying to kind of, I guess, express to you that we have a pivot happening, where we're trying to open more of what we do to you. And I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. When you see this, will you take a second, please, and put in the comments whether you see this on Instagram or YouTube or Facebook. Tell us what you want to see. Do you want to see the backcountry trips? Do you want to like daily, but that takes a lot of time and energy. That takes a cameraman and an editor and somebody to post it. And those take lots of time. I have to figure out how to monetize that, or it won't make sense. If we set a channel up on Patreon and it was $5 a month just to get to watch what we do and all of what we do, would you be interested in that? I mean, I just don't know. So we're thinking about filming all of it, even when I have conversations with my employees and Trisha, and we're making decisions on the farm about financially and, just our personal lives, and kind of opening that up. And, I want to know what you guys want to know, because if you want to know it, I'm kind of willing to do it. It's just a huge undertaking, and then I'm always kind of in front of the camera and doing that, and it becomes a bigger part of what we do, and there's cost to that. And so anyway, tell us your thoughts. I'm curious, and I just wanted to tell you how deeply grateful I am for this land, for you, and for this community that continues to build. So blessed.